Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Stereotypes and embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Power, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka the Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven. Peace, 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 and power. Welcome to the first episode of the Father's Haven with two of your role players. The Father's Haven is a place where we convene, we discuss conversations regarding new fatherhood challenges. We help fathers navigate this difficult landscape of fatherhood, whether it be through systems, institutions, or just holding space in community. Today, you'll have me, Kelly Little, and my brother Chablis, who helped me run the Father's Haven. Chablis, talk to him.
What's up, good brother? Thank you for inviting me to the platform and to share space with you in community as we attempt to bring some healing and some tribal village type of atmosphere back into our community amongst our brothers.
Hey, Chablis, man, before we get started with anything, I always love to start from a place of being grounded. And so to ground us in this space, which is one of the most critical or most important foundational elements to transforming communities and ensuring our young people, as well as our older children, are able to function at an optimal level in our society. It all begins with how a father engages with, how a father, he himself, heals from any childhood challenges they may have. So from that perspective, can you share a memorable moment or a defining moment in your story about your journey as a father?
Man, wow. It's so many of them. I think it's hard to choose just one. But I will say, when the first child was conceived and I found out that his mother was pregnant, I was a teenager, I was 16, and I had always in my life wanted children. I said, when I get older, I'm gonna do, you know how you idealize what it would be like to be able to be the one in charge, right? So at a very young age, I was the oldest youth in the family. So I was the big cousin, the big brother, like anything that you could think of. I was always the oldest one. I was the first one. I was the first grandchild, the first great nephew, all of that, right? And so I had a bunch of kids that I raised. And so there were things that I was like, yo, when I get to be a father, this is how I'm going to be. So I idealized being a father since I was like maybe 8, right? You got the little cousin that's 3 and you helping grandma change the pamper. So I'm saying my grandmother whooped me with a little plastic toilet bowl brush cleaner. And I was like, well, I never whooped my kids with nothing like that. Right? And then you get your parents do things to you in your teens and you make these resolves. So I think the first time that my first son's mother got pregnant, I was like, yo, I'm gonna be the best father in the world. That's what I said. That was a pivot point. And then it was funny too, because her mother was like, you ain't gonna have that baby and live in my house. And I was like, I was a little shot out. You know what I'm saying? I was thugging too. I was like, well, I'm gonna kill your mom then. Ain't nobody gonna kill my baby. I mean, that's serious. I was serious. So I think that the first one was like, man, I'm gonna be the best father as soon as I find out that she's pregnant. And she was like snotball crying. And I was like, yo, you know, why you doing that? We got a baby. We can already have a baby. That's my baby. And she was like, I can't go home.
Right.
And she was traumatized. And I was like, nah, don't worry about that. I'm going to protect everything. I'm out 16. I don't got a good sense in the world, right? I knew I had a strong affinity and a bond for what was growing in her stomach, but a good sense, the ability to be a father or even well-rounded were far from where I was. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the most memorable, right? And there's a million after that. But if you ask me the most memorable time, it was like the first time I knew I'm gonna be a dad.
So I guess to add to what you just shared, tell me a little bit about your first, that's the word I want to ask is when you first realized you were going to be a father, what was your greatest fear and who helped you be able to maneuver and navigate through that fear stepping into fatherhood?
So sincerely, my first greatest fear was not to be a father. Like I had lived for this moment and I was so willing to fight for the opportunity to do that. I mean, I'm really like homicidal. I'm like, yo, I don't care. I don't care about jail, not right, not thinking straight. And I think the first person who really kind of grounded me was my mom because she was the closest, right? There was a thing that she had told me early on, and my dad was present in my life. My mom and dad didn't live together, but they co-parented well. And so he was very present and active in my life. So taking just an example from that, I was like, my father pretty good. I gotta be better than him. Right. And so one of the things she said was my mother said was like, yo, if you have a baby, this was sex education. If you have a baby, you better be ready to take care of that baby. I'm talking about from the first time she knew that I was sexually active, 2 years prior until then. So I had this healthy dose of, yo, you gonna own that, you gonna man that, right? No matter if I was gonna do it and do it correctly, that was a first input. And then the fact, the or preceding that, the fact that I had my dad there as long as I could remember, and he was a solid place. While he may not have had much verbal input at that moment, their influence in this your family, you know, good or bad, right, wrong, indifferent, ready or not, we got to do this. And so, um, she helped my son's mother very early on because she offered a safe haven for her. She said, "Listen, I know your mother is not in agreement. Um, However, our family doesn't believe in abortion." And I told my son, all his life, like, yo, if you jump out there, yo, you better be ready. Um, and as unprepared as I was, I believed that I was, and that I was going to absolutely be a present part of my child's life.
I love that answer. So you said something that really made me smile. You said a safe haven. No pun intended, but this space is a very intentional space, the Father's Haven. So when you think of Father's Haven, what does that mean to you, Chablis?
Refuge, like a place where you can go and you don't have to be anything other than what you are. If you're tired, you can be tired. If you're lonely, if you're scared, if you got anxiety, if you have like you don't even know the answer. Like I just don't know. I'm frazzled. I just don't know. When I think of this space, I think of actually that 16-year-old boy in the kitchen with his 16, I think she was 16 at the time, year old child's mother, and my mom, creating a sanctuary like, listen, y'all might have be way out of your league here for what you're doing, but what's done is done, and we get to figure this out together. That's what I think about. Actually, it's those very early impressionable moments that I hold so tight to when I'm in service and support in community, like whether or not it's incarcerated parents, whether it's actually dealing with my own adult children. Like I have two biological sons and a slew of surrogates, but uh, with them, they're 28 and 30, and we're still working through trauma that was created as a result of my unpreparedness to be a father and wanting to do everything right and with great intention. But I can't romanticize who I was as a 16, 17-year old father and say, yeah, I was this best father. I was the best I could be at that time. And looking back, I fell short a whole lot. I'm like, man, thank the Most High for grace, because like if I was the recipient of some of the behavior that I put out back in the early days, I wouldn't like me. I would actually hate me. You know what I mean? And I was there. I was present. I was doing my best, but I can't romanticize that that was the right thing to do. It was the greatest thing. Nah, I fell short a lot of times. And only in hindsight can a person, or I ain't gonna speak for nobody else. I'm gonna say only in hindsight can I recognize that.
Here's what's so poignant about what you just shared. We all navigate this space that we call life on a journey. And in that journey, we may say we made a lot of mistakes, but to your point, that's hindsight, right? We doing the best we can with what we have to navigate our experience. And I know they say children don't come with any instructions, but in reality, like the more mature we become, the more we understand that they showing us exactly who they are as a child. If we just not only be present, but be present with presence, which for me means just observing them. They're gonna tell you what they need help with. They're gonna give you unconditional love. And so I say that to say we got to give our own selves grace as men, as fathers, as father figures, because some people may have never had a biological child, but they have spiritual children. They are community fathers. They are fathers who have taken on a responsibility of helping their sister's child or children, a friend's child or children. And so we come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms at the Father's Haven, right? And we help fathers navigate difficult spaces, whether it's in child support, social services, whether a person comes through some type of other program or somebody brings them to the haven, right? And they come from a completely different space. And in that experience, Chablis, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what we've seen over the course of the haven?
So to quantify that is hard, because like when I see, and I not only see the people that we are in service to in the community and at the havens, I also see fathers who are currently incarcerated, parents who are currently incarcerated, and attempting to navigate the space of the distance, the dysfunction, the system, what is creating inside, and what's happening outside to children through their school systems, behaviors, and if the kids get in criminal justice system, what's happening with them through the courts and social services. So like when we get into the haven and we get into even session, when we have our sessions twice a week, I see a lot of people who have been uh, sometimes mentally and emotionally uh, whipped, some even castrated, right? Being able to come share those vulnerabilities with other people in the safety of not being judged, and also where somebody's not going to take something away from them, they're actually going to pour something into them. And it sometimes it's scary. I'm going to be just honest. And I've seen it. I've seen it in other people, but just being honest from self, sometimes it's scary to say these things in open space for fear of how that will be carried. We have been prone or taught to be, hey, have it all together. You can't break down. You can't be enraged, or then you're dangerous, right? Um, when all of those things are natural and healthy uh, feelings, and if somebody is not supporting you, saying, "Go ahead, bro, go ahead, fly off the lid, get that frustration out," now you're trying to hold it, and who knows when it comes out or how, and then that's another detriment to self, and then a detriment to family, right? So I've seen magical things happen, right? I've been touched by things that people have said, um, and and I've heard people say back to me how moved they were, or how something that I said or maybe you said uh, caused them to reflect deeper into self. So I I know unequivocally that magic happens in a space where a person can be vulnerable, authentic, and get nurturing.
So, as you say that, another thought that comes to my mind is that society tends to place these parameters on us being men, that we are providers and protectors, and that's our only role. But to your point, as men, we have to be able to be comfortable with going through the full range of emotions, which means I need to embrace both parts of who I am, and that's 100% masculinity, but then there's 100% femininity. And I mean femininity and masculinity from the giving principle and the receiving principle, and making sure that I know and teach, because we model what our children will do. So the haven creates a space for men to be able to share their emotions, whether it be I'm dealing with a difficult situation and I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. We got a full range of fathers who can give perspective, to your point earlier. But at the same time, when they're giving perspective, I might be reflecting and then doing some introspection and how I'm going to navigate that particular landscape, if you will. And
Yeah,
so, go ahead.
no, it was just something you said made me think about something that we don't normally equate, and that's that we have the full gamut of masculine and feminine energy inside of us. None of us, well, I always like to say I speak for myself, but as soon as I say these things, and if I'm in community and room, people be like, yeah, yeah. So that's why when I generalize, I definitely generalize in a way that's inclusive of collective experience. But none of us were told that we should nurture our boys or sons, right? And we got a little uh, uh, man at the Haven, right? I think he's two. I call him the ringleader because he be running around there, running everybody crazy, like, and we chasing him. So that's why I named him the ringleader. But nobody was told that if you have a little man like this, a little boy, that you're going to grow up into hopefully a healthy, well rounded man. He needs to be told, I love you. He needs to be kissed and hugged. He needs to see other men embrace other men. And while a man cries and another person comforts, that's nurturing, right? Not every time they fall down. Oh, get up. It's a height. Don't cry. You a man. No, he's not. He's a little boy, first of all. Second of all, if he's crying, it's because he got hurt. So let's look at it. Hey, you hurt? Oh, come on. Let's do something. Let's go make it better. Let's grab something to soothe the pain. And then, okay, it's going to be okay. We'll get through it, right? It's okay. You could cry. Huh, let me get you some tissue. We weren't conditioned like that. I know I wasn't, and I think you got me by a couple of years. So I'm sure you can echo the sentiment, right? But the nurturing is a part of the feminine energy. I will share with our mom all day and night. You'll cry, you'll cry around your mom, and she'll tell you it's okay, and she'll stroke your head and blah blah blah. And if something happened to her, you would do the same thing. Likewise, vice versa, right? That feminine energy inside of you, nurturing and healing and putting back, but we don't do it with each other. We don't tell our little ones that.
I love the analogy because to your point, I wouldn't say man, our logo, baby DC, not only is the embracing of affection and love with them that's shared as we navigate and have discussion while he's running around, he's subliminally or subconsciously receiving the message that he's a part of a brotherhood in a bigger community. And then some of the brothers with their daughters as well. And so they come in, they happy, they speak, they give you a hug. And so now you've created a ecosystem or community that not only is embracing from men sharing in space one with another, quite a cool healing, but also, hey, look, okay, I see them now. Oh, they're my nieces. So I see something out and I see something going wrong. Although I would step in anyway, it's a different kind of step in because I know their dad. We operate in space. They can come tell me if something ain't right and know that I'm going to make sure they're okay. So, from that perspective, and looking at not only the space to be able to be vulnerable and a brave space to be able to share what you're going through and what challenges and how we navigate them. But the other piece is being able just to sit in the whole space and listen, right? And at that same time, be able to engage in healthy discourse without nobody being mad.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. So one of the things it is for us is definitely changing the narrative. And I mean, the commentary or the conversation right there sounds so cliche, but for how long has how long have men, just men in general, right, been looked at as like, hey, you're the protector, the provider, the strength, the shield, the covering, right? With not very many opportunities to be vulnerable, but also when have Black men in particular had an opportunity to say, hey, we got a responsibility to be nurturers. We have a responsibility to our nieces, right? Daughters, surrogate daughters, community daughters, to model a standard, right? Like I'm looking at some stuff that I see, and it mostly is people who care will send things like children listening to this the new rap and the new music and dancing and some of what they're being fed in their spirit, what the outcome of that is going to be like, what the next 10 years of feeding a constant diet of that, what is that going to look like, right? Well, if we are creating space, right, and promoting something else, there's something to measure that against. And that's very important because at least there's a option and an opportunity, right? A young lady could look and she doesn't have to be sexy red if she doesn't want to. She could be something else because there's a strong group of men. There's a strong group of brothers like uh, Lil DC that grew up in a place where the narrative was different or is different. Uh, so I hate to say that like that because it's these buzzwords today. And oh yeah, let's change the narrative, But it does. It literally does change the narrative, what you see and what you say, because um, when you see me, I definitely am not the individual I was when I was 23 years old.
And that's the beauty of having a haven, because you can shorten someone else's learning curve because of your experiences and their now exposure to a you. And being able to say, you know what, Brother Chablis shared this, and he shared this, so I don't have to make the same mistakes he made. He's gonna pass the baton in a way that I could be more efficient, more effective, and optimize my life trajectory as a result of my association and my connection to him and to the haven. And I say that because here's what we know. Like when we talk about men, we're typically talking about, again, we said providers and protectors, and we're not talking about being nurturers, not talking about being educators. But the funny thing is, when we speak to mothers, they have a maternity ward, but we don't have a paternity ward. Okay. They have motherhood. If you have any program and you talk about fathers, normally they add a responsible before they talking about fathering you. So responsible fatherhood initiative. Or let's say, for instance, if we're talking about somebody in the system, most of the time, the non-resident father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but like, so we have to your point earlier, change the narrative. And a big part of the father's haven is understanding a couple things. One, whatever you need in that moment, and that moment being the entire time we spend at the haven, that's the space to give and to receive, because we either a risk or we're going to be a reward. And so the goal of the haven is to be that reward and make sure we support the brothers, the men, the fathers, when they felt like they fell short. It's just an opportunity to pivot, to shift, and understand that it was a learning opportunity or a lesson that we received in that moment. And you're not going to be judged there. As well as we go from the physical space to even being able to say, hey, look, I'm 53 years old. I've had my colonoscopy. I make sure I do my prostate exams, all those different things that make sure that we identify certain challenges before they become a major challenge that'll cause you not to be in your children or your family's life, right? Down to financial advice, but it's the whole gamut. Barbers there, you build relationships through food. We gonna eat food and we gonna commune. So What are your thoughts around adding all those elements and attributes to a space for the betterment of men and men actually being able to normalize that with children?
So I think anything that enriches an individual pays dividends in a household and a community. And I don't know that I know any place that a person can go, especially a man, and get food for your mind, food, nourishment for your body, and like things that really, really speak to your soul. I remember the first Haven we had about 6 kids, six, maybe seven. By the end of the day, after all of them came through, it was like 10 of them because one of the homies bought 5 by itself. But when we got in this space, and you know, men are pretty particular. They're like, yo, let me like keep an eye on my kids. Somebody do something to my kid, I'm probably gonna have to see somebody. That's just like it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's not like I want this to happen. This is just what's probably gonna happen. And it was amazing to me to see that the gentleman came in, they sat down, their kids sat down beside him. And then when we pulled out the toys, the coloring books, the activities for the kids, the conversation between the men continued. And as kids moved around, parents were unconcerned because they knew they was taken care of by. I mean, I know I was roving, DC was roving, especially chasing the ringleader, but making sure that the girls and the boys weren't playing too rough so that nobody got hurt, and making sure that they were still coming around. So I think any place, and especially what we're creating, where there's a time when people can sit around, they can know that they're being loved on, right? And so healing is happening, wholeness is being created, and then um, the young people get to get the overflow and the outgrowth. The return on investment is tremendous, and we don't get to see it that day. How many you know how many times when we pop off and we finishing and we get ready to take our little group picture, doing our little hey yo call me, yo get my number, da 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 da, our community networking so to speak. People say, hey, can I bring my cousin or can I bring such and such? Man, they'll really get something out of this. Well, you're not thinking about giving somebody else the gift of something that you don't think is valuable. So that says all that needs to be said right there to me, right? If everybody that I talk to is asking, can we bring somebody else? They've created value already. And when you create value for something, ain't nothing that I can tell you. Not me, I could go back and be like, oh man, this fugazi, man. Don't go to the Haven, man. That joint is trash. You're gonna be like, where? Yeah, you're not going to deal with me now because you've already created a value to it. So um, I think my prayer is that momentum happens and critical mass happens where regardless if me and you are there in leadership, regardless if me and you are there in organization, that the haven happens and brothers are connected in a way that somebody picks up the work, even if you or I couldn't possibly continue, right? And that the community is continuing to get enriched and create return with or without 1 to 2 or 100 and 200 and more, you know.
Somebody says, and so when you speak critical mass, and so even from the logo or the emblem of the Father's Haven, F engulfed in a circle. And so what we know is that a circle really has no beginning and no end. That means it spans beyond individuals, into its own orbit or system that will continue to maneuver. And the mark of true leadership, the mark of something that's amazing and truth, is that truth exists through every time and every dispensation, where true only exists in time periods, right? So what truth is, fathers will protect their children to the end. With that being said, as we continue to normalize a space where we can get mental health, physical health, spiritual health, guidance on how to navigate systems, be the receiver, be the giver, be the observant person who's analyzing, who provides additional feedback, right? The question I would have now is around if we think into, let's say, the future, right? What is the legacy, or not even 21st century, I'm going to say 22nd century, right? What is the 22nd century crucial role of fathers in our society in terms of legacy for you? What do you want to see for our children's children as it relates to support, the father's haven, and the
So I
model
think
will lead?
so I definitely don't want us to be having this same conversation that we're having right now, right? Because if we are, we fail miserably. A little bit disheartened that we're even having this type of result in our community in, as men, period. But especially as Black men, right? After all of the things that our ancestors went through, after all of the things that we survived, that we are not uh, further down the line than what we are. But to answer your question, uh, I want to see our lineage have conversations where it's well-rounded, it's healthy. I can receive constructive criticism because I know that the person who's giving me the information is giving me good input that is going to make me better. And I don't have to worry about, do I need to watch my back? My brother is my brother's keeper. And I treat my brother kids like they one of my kids, is the standard, not the exception. Like, you hear that, and it's few and far between of the people who really exemplify that, right? I want that to be the standard. So 100 years from now, I mean, if you pay attention, there are people who talk about historic happenings, and they say, certain things have been put in place and planned for 300 years, right? If I'm looking 300 years in the future, we are not having the same the same conversations of 2024, and things will be way more advanced. But one thing that I would like to see happen is that the things that we create set a staging ground and a platform for other people to be like, oh, we don't have to worry about intimacy issues, right? Like, I'm not worried about that you're looking at me and saying, oh, uh, he's a sucker because of fill in the blank, right? But you're looking at me and saying, man, it takes a strong individual to say this, to do that, to be selfless in this kind of way. That those things become the standard. I don't know if you know or not, but the subtitle of my book that I wrote says to leave a legacy of love. But what does that look like? You know, what does a legacy of love look like? Well, for me, it is very much selfless. It's sacrifice. It's building something better than what I had before. And I ain't gonna lie, I believe, I really feel like what I had was good. Matter of fact, I feel like what I had was great. So I got a pretty high bar to jump over. And I'm just trying to take as many people with me as want to go, even if what they had was crap or non-existent. Like, yo, let me share this with you. This is what high bar looks like. Let's go over top of that together.
So as we bring this thing to a close, one of the most important things that we can offer to our local areas, our county areas, our state areas, our national areas, and our universal areas. First, consistency. Secondly, true impact that's attached to relationship. Three, a network that will allow us to have the support system that men deserve, and the normalization of the full range of what manhood is. And at the same time, understanding that manhood may look a little different for every individual, which goes into the other characteristic, which is allowing space and opportunity for people to show up as themselves without judgment. So I want you to give your last remarks on how we continue to mobilize in this work that have been work for centuries and centuries and centuries from the past, but moving into the future, what's two things you like to see us from a global community standpoint that you would like to see us do to advance fatherhood?
One thing for sure is to continue to keep providing people space. That's absolute, right? The other thing is to for myself to continue to show up in a way that's measurable and that you can hold me accountable. If I say that this is what I'm committed to, try my face. You know what I mean? Say, yo, hey, pull me up out in public and with a whole audience and say, hey, you said this, and your results are not equivalent. So set a standard for results, right? And then hold brothers accountable and responsible for doing their part. So them two things, right? Keep showing up and holding space, creating a platform and a place, and then try a person in face like, yo, you said this is what you want, and your results are not showing the same. So them two things off the bat. And then I need to add this third one. Keep on calling me out to the Father Haven podcast. Let me with the co-host with you sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Because I love to get a lot of other people on here, and not just us. When I say us, I mean not just men, you know, and not just men that are in the Haven or the group, but other positive, productive people, other men, other professionals, you know, other leaders, thought leaders in this space, and really have open dialogue about not only what they're doing, but ways that we can improve individually, collectively, and bring more to this space to create more opportunity and create more levels of standards, right? So that people have something to aspire to. Those things are important to me, man. It's like, yo, if you know me, if you see me out in this world, it's not easy being me, just physically. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm coming out here to show up and put it, I always call it blood work. I mean, when I say blood work, you work your fingers to the bone and they start to bleed and you keep working. That's what I'll put in that kind of work. If I'm doing that, man, you can't look at me talking about what's wrong and what you can't do. It don't work for me. So come back and holler at me when you ready to talk about how much blood work you gonna put in.
So, okay, I don't even know if they ready to unpackage all that. But
That's why you
here's what
gotta
I,
keep having me back.
here's one thing I want to say. Because to your point, it also has a space for everybody to heal. Because I don't care how far we think we've come along and how advanced we think we've become, we're all always healing. Because as soon as you heal from one thing, life, which is undefeated, will give you a new challenge or a new opportunity, just depending on your lens, to be able to adjust to. And so, with that, I need y'all to meditate. I need you to understand what self care looks like, and men should be practicing self care. I need you to understand that you need multiple perspectives. We can never be all knowing, all seeing, and all doing. If we're the teacher, we're also the student. So, as we close, I need y'all to understand that the Father's Haven is a place for your peace, for your refuge, for you to learn more about yourself than you even thought of, and to experience the unique perspectives of everybody who's a part of the Haven. So, with that said, we want to leave you with Chablis going to give you how you can stay connected with him. Uh, there is a new Father's Haven web page that will be, excuse me, not web page, but Facebook page that will be coming soon. You can find a Father's Haven on LinkedIn, as well as through other social media motives. But be looking for the new pages soon. Love Father's Haven. Chablis, it.
Yeah. So you can find me personally direct at on Instagram at the real Chablis. That's the real TheRealChablis. On Facebook at my name, Chablis Dandridge, and on LinkedIn at Chablis Dandridge. If you hit any of those spaces, I will definitely get back with you. I mean, I'm human, real. I reach out in as much as capacity will allow me to. When you work in community, there's a lot more work to do than there is time. So please, please, bear with me if it takes me some time to get back. But my word is that I will get back. And if you can uh, shoot me a link that goes unread, unresponded, you could just plaster that all over the world and say, "Look, I'm try your face chant, you lied." You know what I mean? And that's not a characteristic trait that I like to be associated with. So, Kelly, thanks for the opportunity, man. Listen, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm just excited about the possibility of having more perspectives on here and getting more people committed, because I'm gonna try your face if you say something on the Haven and then next week you be on social media, the news, or any other platform going in the other direction. I'm gonna slide in your DM or call you if I got your phone number and ask what's up. So
Yeah, there's not only support, we holding one another accountable, and can't even close out without saying this, Chablis. Give them a little bit of your story, brother.
oh geez, man, that's a whole nother Haven.
I
That's
want
a whole
you the elevator speech though.
Yo, that was that 30 seconds. Born in New Jersey. We came south in 87. By 95, I've been shot in the back, paralyzed. Started in delinquency at 14, left the criminal justice system at 41. And throughout that process, I evolved, cultivated myself, evolved, and cultivated myself and evolved. And I took a lot of criticism, whether it was whether it was constructive or whether it was malicious. And I just looked at self. How could I improve self in that? And how can I be of service and support to the world to bring more good in it than leave bad? And so that's the short version. I try every day that I wake up to bring value to the community. And I've been blessed for 47 years. Prayerfully, I'll be blessed for another 47 or more. And I plan to, as long as I have sound mind and breath in my lungs, continue to contribute.
Y'all heard it. So if you want more, you're going to have to continue to follow the Father's Haven. For now, we salute you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Shout out to my man Chablis, who will be back.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Stereotypes and embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Power, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka The Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven.